Hello, hello, hello. How are we? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the world or day you are currently coming from. Welcome to Rush to Judgment with Jessica, and I am Jessica. How's everybody? We good? We okay? Barely making it? Yeah. Well, you look great. Everybody's looking good. Good to see ya. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for coming. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's good to see ya. So today we are doing another true crime episode. This one now I'm doing a little different. I normally like to pick ones that I haven't seen before or I don't know about. But this one is familiar. This one actually happened really close to where I live. I remember when it happened. I remember. Um, I just remember, it all going down and when it happened. There is a really long interrogation episode as well that we could take a look at if anybody's interested. But again, I have seen it, so I didn't want to do it because I have seen it. But I like to do these things, things that I haven't seen or are not familiar with. But this one I just wanted to do because it is a pretty gruesome story. But it's a pretty close to home type of story. So wanted to shed some light on it and get this. Fair warning, it is about children and some graphic details about young children. So just fair warning. But yeah, it was for any parents out there that have young children. This was a very tough case. This was a very tough situation. So, but with all that being said, I just want to, remind everyone that I am not an expert in anything. I don't specialize in any particular area of educational information. I'm just here to add my opinions and critical or biased judgment on various topics or subjects that I find interesting or entertaining. This one is definitely not entertaining. This one is merely for just because this one was close to home and this one was a big deal and a big case and a very sad and tragic story. So, yeah. But, so yeah. So if you find that you like what you see here, maybe not the video, but maybe, you like the comments, the commentary and whatever in the content, please like, share, comment, subscribe. It helps get my stuff out there in the algorithm and all that, and it's good for the grift and all that. Can help bring traffic to the page and get it out there for some more people to come in and join the festivities. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, so let's get into it. The little girl in the story, her name was Elizabeth Olten. She was, she was murdered by another young lady named Alyssa Bustamante, and it was just very. I don't know if this, I don't remember this video exactly, so I don't know how much detail it goes into, but if it goes into, I'll talk about it more after. We'll see what it goes into. And if it doesn't cover all of it, I'll cover some more. But let's get her going.
A typical playdate, a troubled young teen, and one deadly secret. All of these elements are tied up together in a case that to this day is often regarded as one of the most disturbing and shocking. What is up, Iwu crew? Today we are exploring the infamous case of Alyssa Bustamante. Let's get into it. From the moment Alyssa Bustamante was born to her teenage parents in January of 1994, she was introduced to a world of endless trials and tribulations. Her mother, Michelle, who was only 15 when she had Alyssa, was reported to struggle with raising her daughter and was described by news sources as a less than picture-perfect mom. Later court documents reported that Michelle had a history of misdemeanor convictions for drunken driving and marijuana possession. Alyssa's father, Cesar, was also alleged to have addiction issues, and police records show that he was eventually convicted of felony assault and was sentenced to serve 3 concurrent terms in prison. While Alyssa was still very young, the family moved frequently between California and Missouri. As a child, Alyssa, with 2 teenage parents who didn't appear to be ready to raise a child, had already begun developing questionable behavior. However, this behavior would only increasingly worsen after she and her younger brothers were taken in by their grandparents when Alyssa was around 8 years old. In fact, her grandparents eventually achieved legal custody of the 4 children. The grandparents wanted to raise the children with more stability and brought them to the small, quaint town of St. Martin's, Missouri, which had a population of just over 1,000 at the time. In the little town, crammed right next to Jefferson City, everyone knew just about everyone. Alyssa did not adjust right away, though. In fact, it was difficult for Alyssa to get used to living with her grandparents, and she allegedly struggled with depression and was reported to occasionally self-harm. As Alyssa grew into a teenager and attended Jefferson City High School, she began to develop a more edgy personality. She often had strands of hair in front of her eyes due to her side-swept bangs, wore heavy eye makeup, and painted her nails black. This was in contrast to the other young girls she interacted with, especially at the church she regularly attended, where she was known to participate in several different youth activities. Although most people just saw a girl with an edgy style, Alyssa was far from a typical teenager, as deep inside, she was stirring with distress and turmoil. This dark, troubled side of the young teen would show itself in disturbing and often upsetting ways at home. Online sources cite that Alyssa's mood would often fluctuate, and she developed a habit of taking rather questionable pictures of herself. This included selfies where her lipstick was smeared to look like blood, and another where her fingers imitated a gun to her head. This side of Alyssa only seemed to grow as time went on, and things continually worsened down the line, eventually culminating to a peak on one fateful Labor Day weekend in 2007. Alyssa was rushed to the hospital after carving the word hate on her arm and attempting to take her own life by overdosing on Tylenol. After the scare, her grandparents knew they had to find help for Alyssa before things got even worse. Alyssa's grandparents tried endlessly to find her aid, taking her to numerous counselors and therapists. Soon after the incident, Alyssa was prescribed Prozac, an antidepressant. Despite their best efforts, Alyssa continued down a dark path, one that would eventually lead to a terrible incident. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Olten, Alyssa's 9-year-old neighbor, was seen as the complete opposite. She was described by her mother as a sweet, girly girl, loving kittens and everything pink. On October 21st, 2009, Elizabeth Olten was at home practicing for a school play. Her mother, Patricia Price, otherwise known as Patty, was just preparing for dinner when there was a knock at the door. It was one of Elizabeth's friends, 6-year-old Emma, who lived across the woods. She had walked over to see if Elizabeth could come play with her. Elizabeth, as any child would, begged to go and play for just a few minutes. Reluctantly, Patty allowed her, but instructed that she had to be back in an hour at 6 o'clock sharp. Because of Elizabeth's fear of the dark, Patty was quite confident that her daughter would be back shortly. Excitedly, the two friends burst out the door and into the fresh air. Little did Patty know, an innocent playdate would soon turn into a nightmare. When it finally reached 6 o'clock, Elizabeth still hadn't returned, and Patty had a terrible premonition. Immediately, Patty called her neighbor, hoping to hear that Elizabeth was still playing with Emma. Unfortunately, that was not the case. In fact, Patty was horrified to hear from her neighbors that Elizabeth had never made it to the house at all. After calling the police, Patty went over to the neighbor's house to be sure that Elizabeth wasn't somewhere on the property. To her dismay, Elizabeth was nowhere to be found. Police began a grid search, and hundreds of people in the community joined to try and find the missing Elizabeth. During the search, investigators pinged Elizabeth's cell phone, which said it was located somewhere in the forest, and they directed their search to that area. A few volunteers had come across something a bit peculiar in the woods, what appeared to be an empty grave, but still, there was no sign of the young girl. The FBI quickly became involved, and they soon questioned Emma. According to trial documents, she told investigators that she had played for a while, and then Elizabeth had headed back home. However, Emma, shortly after playing with Elizabeth, had fallen into a bush full of thorns and started crying before she called out, "Alyssa, come and help me." As it turned out, Alyssa Bustamante was Emma's half-sister, and Alyssa was in the area when the two young girls were playing. Alyssa, who was only 15 at the time, was questioned to see if she knew anything of importance about Elizabeth's disappearance. Alyssa lamented that she had no idea where the missing girl was. Police observed that Alyssa was calm and cooperative, and decided that at the time, there was no reason to suspect her. However, this would soon take a dramatic turn. Eventually, investigators brought her over to the area of the empty grave. There, Sergeant Rice and his forensics team were processing the area, and as Alyssa made her way over, Rice heard her say something rather strange. Alyssa said that she herself had dug the hole, but assured them that there was nothing sinister behind it. Instead, When Rice asked her why, she responded that she just liked to dig holes and that she would place dead animals in them on occasion. Although Alyssa made it
Not
sound like
strange
the
at all.
grave was nothing to worry about, Sergeant Rice found her explanation suspicious.
She just likes
While
to bury
FBI
dead
agents
animals.
searched the Bustamante home for any sign of clues, one agent in particular investigated Alyssa's room. What was found by the officer was more than disturbing. It was crucial evidence. Compared to the rest of the home, Alyssa's room was dark and dreary, with writing on the walls. Although some of the notes on her walls were written in pen, others were described by police as appearing to have been written in blood. Along with the strange writing and postcards sent from her father from prison, investigators uncovered an unnerving drawing. Upon further inspection, it turned out to be a drawing of Alyssa's half-sister Emma, as titled on the paper. However, in a disturbing twist, Emma was drawn with slashes on her head and arm. As police continued through the room of horrors, they still hadn't found anything that could relate to Elizabeth's disappearance. That is, until they found a diary written by Alyssa. The diary, while not innocent in the slightest, still had nothing of substance in relation to Elizabeth at first. Police flipped through the pages, discovering where Alyssa had previously written about burning down a house and killing its occupants. Police assumed that she was referring to her grandparents' house. The investigators turned to a page bearing the date of October 21st, 2009, the day Elizabeth vanished. The entry was oddly scribbled out in blue ink, and the only thing they could properly make out at the time was the very last sentence, which read, "I gotta go to church now, LOL." The agents took the diary as potential evidence, with the intent to try and make out the rest of the entry later. When they eventually used black lighting to read what was scribbled under the blue ink, they had a glimpse of something incredibly disturbing. The two words "slit" and "throat." It was also soon discovered that the same day as Elizabeth's disappearance, Alyssa had taken a day off from school, her first unexcused absence, which further increased the suspicion surrounding the 15-year-old. Alyssa was brought in to speak with police about what they had uncovered. Sergeant Rice took her diary into the interrogation room with Alyssa and her grandmother, but he did not yet reveal to the 15-year-old that he had it. A few questions later, Sergeant Rice informed her that he was in possession of her diary and told her that they had read the last entry. At first, Alyssa tried to say that she had indeed gone into the forest with Elizabeth, but she had not killed her. Instead, she claimed that Elizabeth hit her head and died immediately. Up until this point, investigators had been holding out hope that the young girl could possibly be found alive. Rice didn't buy Alyssa's story for a second. After clarifying that the real cause of death would be revealed in the autopsy, he asked her firmly, was her throat cut? To which Alyssa replied, yes. Alyssa's grandmother immediately started to cry after this shocking revelation, and soon left the interrogation room. Alyssa then admitted in detail the horrific acts she committed on that tragic day. Alyssa had instructed her young half-sister Emma to go and fetch Elizabeth and ask her to play. Of course, Alyssa's intent was far from simply letting the two girls enjoy a play date. Her sinister plot unrolled from there, as she told Emma to go home after she had brought Elizabeth to her. It was then that she led her into the forest. In the police report, Rice quoted Alyssa as saying to 9-year-old Elizabeth, "I've got something really neat to show you. It's just a little further up here." Then, Alyssa lured Elizabeth to where she had already dug a grave deep in the woods. When they arrived, Alyssa began to strangle Elizabeth. It didn't end there, though. Alyssa then stabbed her in the chest multiple times and slit her throat. She proceeded to bury her in one of the 2 graves she had dug and went back home as if nothing had ever happened.
And then went to
Alyssa,
church.
who was but a child herself, had violently ended another child's life in the most brutal way possible. After Alyssa's horrific confession, she then led investigators to Elizabeth's body, tucked away in the woods. Elizabeth, covered in mud and leaves, was found partially buried mere inches under the ground, a sad and gruesome sight. After the autopsy, it was revealed that Elizabeth was killed in the exact way that Alyssa had described to Rice, with 8 stab wounds to the chest. Eventually,
Jesus.
investigators were able to use the blue light to uncover the rest of Alyssa's sick entry. It read, "I just killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat, and now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kinda nervous and shaky right now, though. Okay, I gotta go to church now, LOL." While the entry itself is disturbing enough, as the investigation continued, more unbelievable details were uncovered. Police found evidence that Alyssa had told a friend that she wondered what it would be like to kill someone. On Alyssa's YouTube, she had listed her hobbies, including killing people. As well, a diary entry written a week prior to Elizabeth's death read, "If I don't talk about it, I bottle it up, and when I explode, someone's gonna die." When police asked why she had killed Elizabeth, Alyssa chillingly explained that she just wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. Some theories speculate that Elizabeth had not been her original target. Instead, it's widely believed that she initially wanted to kill her 2 brothers, which would explain why she had dug the 2 graves. Hauntingly, following digging the graves, she had gone to school and lived her life as usual, though she appeared to be making plans to kill someone. A disturbing video Alyssa uploaded onto her YouTube page is often pointed to as evidence for the speculated theory that she had initially targeted her brothers. In the video, she convinces her brothers to touch an electric cattle fence. Before it shows her brothers touching the fence, a text title appears saying, "This is where it gets good. We get to see my brothers get hurt." On January 30th, 2012, Alyssa's trial began. She was tried as an adult and pled guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action. However, Alyssa's confession was then suppressed, and her defense team was offered a plea deal, which they accepted. Alyssa was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the chance of parole. She also had had an additional 30 years added because of the armed criminal action charge. This meant that Alyssa would serve a little over 35 years in prison before being eligible for parole. Needless to say, this upset Elizabeth's family as well as much of the public. Elizabeth's father, who was in prison on a state drug conviction at the time of the murder, had pleaded in a letter sent to court for Alyssa to receive the maximum sentence before she had been convicted. To Elizabeth's father, it didn't seem fair that while Elizabeth had no chance to live her life, Alyssa could possibly have the chance to live hers after serving time in prison. Alyssa made a statement during her sentencing while the Olten family sat stony-faced nearby. She said, "I cannot even understand what you guys are going through. I'm sorry for that. If I could give my life to bring her back, I would, and I'm sorry." Understandably, the Olten family was not even close to accepting the teenage murderess's apology. Since the trial, Elizabeth's mother, Patty, has settled a wrongful death lawsuit against Alyssa, which requires her to pay her more than $5 million. In 2021, Alyssa Bustamante has quite a few persistent supporters, mostly online. On chat forums, some people have commented that they love her, while others say that they would love to be friends with her. Many of these supporters believe that Alyssa, who is now around the age of 27, still might have a chance to turn her life around, and some even think she should be released from prison. There is an interesting and popular theory surrounding Alyssa and her use of antidepressants as a potential factor in her crime. In fact, this theory came up during her trial. At the time of Elizabeth's death, Alyssa was taking Prozac, and her dosage had increased a considerable amount only a few weeks before she committed the crime. Antidepressants are known to have some awful side effects, but Prozac is supposedly on a completely different level. According to LiveScience.com, Prozac is most commonly linked to aggression and known to increase violent behavior by 10.9 times. This fact has led some to speculate that the antidepressant could possibly have played a role in Alyssa's behavior. According to The Guardian, young people taking antidepressants such as Prozac or Seroxat are significantly more likely to commit violent crimes when on the medication, which supports this theory. However, it continues, but taking higher doses of the drugs appear to reduce that risk, scientists say.
Oh, well, goddamn.
This additional information appears to discredit the theory, since her dosage had, in fact, increased. And yet, The Guardian also cites that in a study looking at correlations between crime rates and people who are prescribed drugs like Prozac and Seroxat, it found that people in younger age groups, ages 15 to 24, have a much higher chance of committing violent crimes while on the medication, a hefty 43%. Despite these statistics, Dr. Anthony Rothschild, the main prosecution witness in Alyssa's trial on the second day of the sentencing hearing, denies this theory adamantly by saying, "There is no reliable evidence in the medical and scientific literature that Prozac causes people to commit murder. Although these theories are interesting to consider, the fact still stands that either way, Elizabeth Olten's murder was committed by Alyssa Bustamante. No matter the opinions over alleged reasons behind the murder, Elizabeth's family must still bear the burden of knowing that they will never see the happy little girl again.
Oh, I wanted to know what it
because of
felt
Alyssa's
like.
dark
She
choices.
didn't kill her out of rage.
Sweet Elizabeth, who only wanted to go and play outside before dinner, didn't even have the chance to make it back home. Patty has commented that she hates Alyssa and has also tearfully stated, "So much has been lost at the hands of..."
Like, she didn't kill her out of rage and anger. That's not what she said. So, okay, we'll watch a little bit of her interrogation to get a feel for what this girl was like and see if it irritates anybody else, because it irritated me.
I'm not going to ask any questions right now until we get.
What would make a grandmother emotionally break down like that? For Karen Brooke, it was the murder her 15-year-old...
So this is Grandma. This is Alyssa. This is the officer asking questions. This is the DFS lady or the caseworker lady that has to be in there because she is a minor. Her confession got thrown out because of this lady right here. You'll see why here in a few.
Granddaughter, Alyssa Bustamante, just confessed to. If you had to describe Alyssa Bustamante's childhood with a single word, it would undoubtedly be tragic. According to case documents, Alyssa confided in a mental health professional that she had been subjected to severe mistreatment at a young age, The resulting trauma led to Alyssa being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and the doctor stated she developed an abhorrence for violence. She'd been the result of a teenage pregnancy, as her mother, Michelle, was only 15 years old when she was born.
She went through.
Though her grandparents were excited to have grandchildren, Alyssa's parents, Michelle and Caesar, weren't prepared for parenthood. It wasn't long before Alyssa was joined by 3 younger siblings, twin brothers, and a sister named Emma. The children grew up in a turbulent household. Cesar Bustamante was eventually charged with 3 counts of assault and was sentenced to serve 3 concurrent prison terms. There was no stability for Alyssa, her brothers, and sister, and they were often evicted, forcing them to constantly pack up and move. Michelle's parents, Gary Brooke, stepped in to help take care of the children. However, they soon found that many of their efforts, such as sending food to the family and visiting, were all in vain. Eventually, they realized that there was only one thing they could do that would truly make a difference in the children's lives. The grandparents decided to campaign for full custody of Alyssa and her siblings. When they gained full custody of the children, Alyssa was about 8 years old. Living with her grandparents offered her stability for the first time in her life, but Alyssa had already been exposed to far too much. Seeking a new start, Alyssa's grandparents moved the family to the small town of St. Martin's, Missouri, where they bought a nice home on a large piece of land. Right away, the twin boys and Emma flourished in their new location, but Alyssa seemed to have difficulty adjusting. It was in this small town of just over 1,000 people, where everyone knows everyone, that Alyssa's gruesome crime would devastate all who lived there. It was Wednesday, October 21st, 2009, when Alyssa's younger sister, Emma Bustamante, now 6 years old, knocked on the Oltens' front door. She wanted 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten to come out and play. The Bustamantes and Oltens only lived 4 houses down from each other, and the 2 young girls would often play at each other's houses. But on this particular day, Elizabeth would never make it home. Elizabeth Olten was a typical girly girl. Before Emma showed up at Elizabeth's house, she'd been excitedly practicing her lines at the dining room table for an upcoming musical, Noteworthy. Elizabeth's mother, Patty, said she couldn't go play at first. Dinner would be ready soon, but the girls begged her enough for her to finally give in. Patty gave her daughter clear instructions to be home by 6 p.m., when the sun would nearly be set in late October, and Patty trusted that Elizabeth would come home, since the 4th grader was terrified of the dark. Emma and Elizabeth played board games and hopscotch in the Bustamante driveway. Eventually, Elizabeth told Emma that she needed to go home. Emma stood on the big rock by her driveway and watched her friend begin her walk home. However, she didn't stay to see if Elizabeth made it all the way home safely. Emma was later asked by investigators if Elizabeth might have walked through the woods to get home, but she was adamant that they never went in the woods. Emma continued playing outside, though she didn't know for how long. At some point, she lost a hair tie in the thorns by her driveway, and when she tried to retrieve it, she scratched her hand and her foot got stuck. Emma said she yelled until Alyssa came to help her, claiming Alyssa had been in the house and heard her through an open window. As Alyssa helped her out of the thorns, Emma noticed a spot of blood on the thigh of Alyssa's pants. She asked her sister about it, who explained it away by saying she had her period. Alyssa made her little sister promise not to tell anyone about the blood. When 6 p.m. passed, Elizabeth hadn't returned home. Worried, Patty called Elizabeth's cell phone over and over, but there was no answer. Patty then called Emma's grandmother, Karen, to ask if Elizabeth was still at their house. Karen told her that Elizabeth had never even been to the home and wasn't even aware that the girls had been playing. She hung up and immediately called the police. Authorities began their investigation by interviewing the last known person Elizabeth was with, Emma Bustamante. Emma described playing with Elizabeth from approximately 5 to 6 p.m. before Elizabeth left for home. Grandma Karen sat in the room during this questioning, Emma continually glancing at her as she answered the investigators' questions. There was one detail Emma gave that struck investigators as odd: the bloodstain she spotted on Alyssa's pants. Karen seemed removed from the interview, but toward the end she stated, "We just want the truth to come out, whatever it is." By 10 p.m., word of the missing 9-year-old spread through this small town, and hundreds of residents came out in support of the Olten family to search for little Elizabeth. When they had searched the whole neighborhood, as well as the woods, and turned up nothing, law enforcement decided to ping Elizabeth's cell phone and found that it led back to the 60 acres of woods behind her home. Volunteers then made a strange discovery, a hole in the woods in the shape of a grave. As the forensics team began to process the scene, the FBI began interviewing Alyssa. For reasons that are still unknown, they brought her to the hole where Alyssa admitted something odd. She dug the hole. When questioned why exactly she dug it, she said she just likes digging holes and would bury dead animals when she found them. Strangely, the hole ended up being empty, but investigators knew something was very off with Alyssa. They then conducted a search of her room and discovered a shocking key piece of evidence, one that they would wait to confront Alyssa with until her videotaped interrogation. This led to the most dramatic meltdown in any interrogation we've analyzed yet.
Oh, really? I don't get to
Huh?
rocks.
Yeah, rocks. So if you don't mind, if I sit here so I can write, because I'm going to be taking a lot of notes. So.
Okay.
It's important to note that when a person is brought in for interrogation, law enforcement have likely developed a reasonable suspicion that the person is involved in the crime. Karen accompanied Alyssa in the interrogation room. Going in, she fully believed Alyssa was innocent. She was in for the shock of her life as the truth began to unfold right before her eyes.
Walk me through exactly what happened.
We didn't go to seminary that day, right? I woke up and
Just
I
listen
went
to
out to
her
get the
lie,
bus,
though.
but I missed the bus because it doesn't usually pick me up.
Okay.
So I went back to the house, and my grandpa gave me a ride to school. So I went to school.
Okay.
And I was there all day. And then I came home on the bus, and I got home around 3. No, 4. 3:30, 4. I get home around then, and I just hung out in my room for a while. And then I went for a walk around 4:35, something like that.
She is feigning ignorance, commonly referred to as playing dumb.
I was just walking around in the forest for a while. And I was supposed to take my little sister with me, but I ditched her because she's annoying.
Okay.
And I was just walking around in the forest. And then for about an
forest.
hour, I came back around 5:36-ish. And I went up in my room, and I heard like yelling. So I went outside, and she was down in the ditch area. She was stuck in thorn bushes. So I went down there, and I helped her out. And she asked me why I was bleeding, because I found out on my period. And yeah, don't tell anyone that. And so we went out there, and my brother and Andy were asking about it because she was supposed to be at home or something.
Okay.
And I didn't really think much of it, so we just went back to the house.
Alyssa nonchalantly shrugs her right shoulder. Shrugging only one shoulder is considered a modified shrug, or a variant of a natural shoulder shrug. Abnormal movements like this often suggest uncertainty in what the person is conveying. She leans to her left, an additional nonverbal display of discomfort. The interrogator is in the position of power, blocking the only exit. Although she initially appeared comfortable, Bustamante is now attempting to regain her power in a position of powerlessness.
And then started to get ready to go to church, because we have Wednesday night activities.
Okay.
And came, and he was patting on the door, and he was like, do you know where Elizabeth is? Because he couldn't find her.
She begins to nod her head as she speaks. This does not align with her baseline pattern of nonverbal behavior. Something is off. Although we can only speculate, this may serve as a self-pacifying behavior. Bustamante
See, I wish
is
I
assuring
knew how to
herself that
do
what
the
she says is
behavioral
believable.
analysis
Alternatively,
for stuff like
Bustamante's
this,
head
'cause
movements
it's
could be a
very
conscious or
interesting.
subconscious manipulative, nonverbal, meant to spur agreement
I'm
and
not that
empathy in the
observant.
interrogator.
And
I'm
that's
like,
when
she's
things started
just-
to get, people were like, oh, what's going on? Like, where is she?
Continue to observe all the nonverbal indicators of discomfort that we mentioned previously, but
All
take
I
note
see
of
is she's
contrasts.
fidgety.
we ended up going to church, and a lot of stuff happened while we were there because it's from 7 to 8:15 ish. And when we came back, there was 3 sheriff cars in our property, and there was people out searching everywhere. And that's pretty much it. I went to sleep after that.
Okay.
Bustamante says, here. She does not use this consistently throughout the interrogation. It is not one of her baseline tendencies. Because she does not regularly say, this moment is worth noting. It's also interesting to note that Alyssa uses what is known as an exclusion qualifier when she states, that's pretty much it. According to the retired CIA interrogator, Philip Houston, an exclusion qualifier is defined as being a tactic that enables people who want to withhold certain information to answer your question truthfully without releasing that information. Examples of exclusion qualifiers include statements such as, not really, fundamentally, for the most part, probably, and so on.
That's pretty much it. I went to sleep after that.
By stating that's pretty much it, she's technically being truthful, but only by leaving out key details and withholding information, specifically the murder of Elizabeth Olten. When the CIA is interrogating an individual, they conduct both body language and statement analysis. They look for clusters of 3 or more indicators that occur in either quick succession or all at once. This exact moment is the perfect example of what a CIA officer looks for during an interrogation to determine if someone is being deceitful.
That's pretty much it. I went to sleep after that.
When Alyssa states that's pretty much it, there are 4 indicators that occur within just a few seconds. The aforementioned a half shrug of the shoulder, shaking of the head, and then nodding the head. Note how she shakes her head no as she states, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
This is known as incongruent body language, though of course, you always want to look for clusters. This particular moment is significant as it's paired with other indicators, including statement analysis. Alyssa employs the exclusion qualifier multiple times throughout the interrogation. See if you can spot the other moments where she employs this tactic and post the timestamps in the comments.
Okay.
No,
Alyssa
because
gives
I'm
Officer
not
David
that
Rice the
good
outline of her movements on
at
Wednesday the
paying
21st.
attention.
But 2 things become clear during this retelling of events. Alyssa had come into contact with Elizabeth Olten on the day she went missing, and Alyssa unwittingly places herself in the woods where Elizabeth's cell phone last pinged and where eventually they'll find Elizabeth. This confirms opportunity and the place for the crime to take place, but Alyssa's demeanor comes across as calm and confident.
Now, you have a boyfriend.
I do.
Okay, what's his name?
His name's
Dustin. Okay. Do you know, has anybody talked to him about any of this? Or
I'm pretty sure he's been interviewed.
okay.
Alyssa's boyfriend had been interviewed by law enforcement, and when the interview opens, we see him biting his nails and looking nervous. According to the case files, there had been an eyewitness who claimed to see a teen allegedly resembling him near the location of Elizabeth's disappearance. This interview took place after Alyssa's own interrogation, though he was also interviewed previously as well. And as the interview begins, he had just taken a polygraph test and was about to be confronted with the results.
You're not being truthful with me about everything that's going on here. You know, and we need to get to truth. That's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. You know, we know a lot more stuff than we're leading on to believe. We've talked to several people.
The interrogator sits closely to Bustamante's boyfriend, Dustin, and speaks with authority. He states that they know Dustin has more information. This is a direct confrontation approach
the
to
interrogator can't
We've talked to
speak
several
of
of your friends. We've talked to several of his friends. And they've told us some stuff. They've told us some phone conversations they've had and everything.
and everything.
So what do you know? I don't know anything. What do you know? Nothing. All that I know is what the FBI told me. Why is the polygraph telling me different? Why is your body telling me different? Why is your heart telling me different? I'm nervous. Nervous has nothing to do with it. We've talked about that.
I mean, that's not
The
true.
interrogator is looking for a reason why Dustin is nervous. The polygraph test is all about psychophysiological detection of deception, PDD, or the use of physiological measures to detect lying. It measures certain autonomic physiological markers, such as heart rate, perspiration, and blood pressure. Examiners measure these markers at suspects' baselines before they're interrogated. Then they measure how these markers change from question to question. These markers are associated with anxiety, which is often present when one lies. The interrogator knows that Dustin is nervous. However, the polygraph cannot show exactly why he is nervous, when he is nervous. An adrenaline spike to a question could indicate lying or some other form of emotional arousal, not directly related to the topic of the question. The interviewer isn't outright saying if he failed the lie detector test. Later case documents revealed the polygraph's results. Alyssa's boyfriend was asked 3 questions during this polygraph, all concerning Elizabeth. Did you physically cause her death? Did you physically take her life? Did you do anything physical that ended her life? He answered no to all 3. Yet, according to the case files, it was determined that he was being deceptive in some way with his answers to all 3 questions.
Nervousness has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. Your heart rebels against a lie when you normally tell a lie. And there's nothing you can do to control it. You can try to control your breathing all you want. You can think of other things all you want. But your heart, that right there, is going to tell the truth.
Don't touch me.
The heart is the first autonomic physiological baseline measurement collected. Some studies suggest that both heart rate and respiration rate show no significant increase or decrease, depending on whether the subject told the truth. But research has produced mixed results. Regardless of these inconsistencies, what is most telling is how suspects respond
That's why
when
it's
under the
junk
impression
science and
that
it's
they were
inadmissible
caught
in
in a
court.
lie. Let us see how Dustin reacts when the interrogator implements this technique, a technique we will explain in just a moment.
What if I told you that we did a neighborhood canvas out there? We talked to all the neighbors who live out there, even the neighbors who live in the subdivision behind where I live, and then there lives in the subdivision behind where I also lives. We talked to all those neighbors. We did a spot check out there with cars. Now all the cars that came off and came through there, we stopped and talked to them. What if I told you somebody saw a kid about your size in a black hoodie with a black t-shirt and blue jeans on, standing there on the side of the road next to the guardrail?
From that point on, we see the interview begin to use what is called the Reed technique. The Reed technique is an interrogation type used in the accusatory process. An interviewer tells the suspect that the results of the investigation clearly indicate they committed the crime in question. It's a 3-phase process, beginning with fact analysis, then a behavioral analysis interview. This phase is designed to be non-accusatory to develop investigative and behavioral information. The 3rd phase follows, when appropriate, the 9 steps of interrogation.
And we did a photo lineup. We did.
During the initial neighborhood police canvass, the eyewitness said that they had seen a strange boy in a dark t-shirt and baggy pants, standing alone at a guardrail near where Elizabeth went missing. The eyewitness had been shown a copy of Alyssa's boyfriend's driver's license photo, and they claimed that the picture resembled the person they had seen. We know that eyewitness testimony is notoriously inaccurate. Though admissible in court, witnesses rely on autobiographical memory, specifically episodic memory, which is a type of recall involving events with contextual details, such as where and when something occurred. This type of memory is sensitive to memory bias. A witness might recall a suspect wearing a blue shirt a day after the occurrence, but state that the shirt was red a week later.
So why is that? I wasn't there.
Alyssa's boyfriend comes across pretty confident, borderline defiant, when he looks the interviewer directly in the eyes. It's interesting to see him be combative with the interviewer at the mention of law enforcement having already done a photo lineup. Contrary to popular belief, anger is a more common reaction in individuals accused of something that is not true. If law enforcement had completed a photo lineup and it led to a positive identification, he would have already been arrested and charged. The constant accusation becomes exhausting, and suspects just want the process to end. They assume that admitting something will end the interrogation, and most suspects think that invoking the rights of silence and counsel will label them as guilty. Alyssa's boyfriend is strong-willed throughout the entire interrogation and didn't take any of the bait the interviewer dangled in front of him. After he is questioned by the interrogator in the video, he's then questioned by Sergeant Rice.
Guilty or
It
not.
was then that he confirmed the
Don't
investigator's
say
suspicions all
no
along.
words.
He had been hiding something.
Exactly. What did she tell you? Okay. told you that she killed her. She told you that she strangled her. And what else?
Cut her. She didn't get into detail with that. She just said strangled her and cut her.
On October 22nd, Alyssa had gone to his house and told him about the crime she'd committed just the day before. He denied having ever been involved in the crime and said he wasn't present when it happened. So why had he lied?
Because he didn't want to be involved.
Once she found out that I gave away information that got her locked up, when she, like, I have a family, and she finds out where I live because she's obsessed about it and kills everybody. What if she gets out on bail and she finds out a way how to take off her ankle bracelet, and she comes and kills me in my sleep and my mom, and then finds out where my sister lives and kills her?
Scared of what?
Her, and if I'm gonna have any more girlfriends like this.
You poor guy. Well, I guess they're not all crazy. I guess that's understandable.
Dustin was never implicated in the murder of Elizabeth Olten. Back in Alyssa's interrogation, Sergeant David Rice pulls a map of the surrounding woods and neighborhood.
There's like a tree line. Do you want to like draw this for you? I have a map. Oh.
Now, the thing about this map, I don't think it has where your actual house is. So the way I understand the new house would be right back here. Is that right?
I
Okay,
take
let's say the new
offense
house
to
is
that.
ballpark here.
And then there's a trail that goes out here, and it's like right.
Drop for me if you want.
I'm not exactly sure how far back it goes. It's like past all the clearings, and then when it starts to get to like a smaller trail and whatnot, there's a little side thing. It's like a side trail I go off on.
It's something we always do is we'll walk a person through their day, and we make a timeline just so we go through everything. So what time did you go for your walk?
The interrogator is
Okay.
using the TED technique,
So
or the
she
tell,
just
explain,
lies
describe
and lies
technique.
and lies and
He is
lies
making
and
it clear to
more.
Bustamante that he wants her to
I'm
We're
going
gonna
and I'm stopping my room, but not like evidence like that. They have like marijuana seeds, and
And you understand, I don't care about marijuana seeds or any of that.
they found
Care less.
my medication.
Don't care about that.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here about. Has ever been in the house? I mean, she's coming
She
over to
has
visit
been in
with
the
him.
house, yes.
Yeah, I assume if she's a neighbor girl, she's probably been over there, so not a big deal there. So you said they searched your room.
Yes.
Other than marijuana seeds and that sort of stuff, did they find anything?
Nope.
Okay, did they take anything?
They took my sheet and a pillowcase. I think.
Did they take anything else?
and your
I don't
journal.
think so. I haven't really surveyed anything.
Oh,
I think they took clothes. Oh, they took a pair of pants.
And a diary. I mean, they gave us a list. It's not all coming to me what was on the list, but there's a long list.
This moment is incredibly
Ooh.
significant. Up until this point, Alyssa had no idea her diary was collected as evidence.
I mean, they gave us a list. It's not all coming to me what was on the list, but there's a long list.
Your diary. Okay. You ever gone through the diary?
I've looked at some of it, yes.
Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Does it make you angry?
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's kind of your private, personal thoughts.
Hair flip.
Alyssa's bedroom was anything but ordinary of what you would expect for a 15-year-old girl. The room was messy, with clothes thrown on the floor, but it was the bizarre writings all over her walls that caught investigators' attention, and a drawn figure with slash marks to their head and arms, with the name Emma, Alyssa's younger sister, written next to it. Some of these writings, including dark poems, were written in pen and marker, but others looked like they'd been written in blood. Letters and cards were taped up onto the walls from her father, who was still in prison at the time, and on Alyssa's bed, hidden under a blanket, was her journal. She wrote down her thoughts and feelings like any normal teenage girl, but nothing could prepare the investigators for what else they would find inside. The journal was filled with disturbing thoughts, including Alyssa's desire to burn a house down with a family inside. She wrote another entry which stated, "If I don't talk about it, I bottle it up, and when I explode, someone is going to die." Her last
I read
entry,
that
dated
already.
Wednesday, October 21st, was
There
the
it
same
is.
day Patty Olten reported Elizabeth's disappearance to the police. Alyssa had scribbled the words out in blue ink, thinking no one would ever figure out how to read them. Despite her efforts to cover up the entry, investigators were able to read the disturbing original writing. "I just fucking killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my God, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now, LOL." This entire time, Detective Rice was well aware of the sickening confession Alyssa had written inside, and was waiting up until this moment to confront her and take her completely off guard. From this point onward, there will be a massive shift in Alyssa's demeanor as she realizes the games are over.
Do you think they went through your diary?
If they collected it, then most likely.
He remains silent for 13 seconds, and you can see how uncomfortable Alyssa becomes. He will continue to use long moments of silence to make Alyssa uncomfortable and eventually draw out a confession.
What? Well, I think I'm just embarrassed because they find that about me.
The most important aspect of reading body language is analyzing clusters rather than individual indicators. In the following clip, you'll see a cluster of indicators that Alyssa exhibits, suggesting she is experiencing high levels of stress. She smacks her lips, swallows, flips her hair. She'll then exhibit what is known as the freeze response, which is a limbic system response to danger. She gets so still, she almost appears to be a statue.
We talked a little bit earlier about technology.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you write something down,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Let's say you write it down in pencil, and then you take a pen and try real hard to scratch it out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make it go away.
Okay.
It's still there. And forensically, actually you don't even need a whole lot of forensics. If you hold it up to a light, you can see what was written. And then when that's processed forensically, every word, every stroke is still there. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
What we want to do is find out what happened to the little girl.
Okay.
Alyssa's face, though a bit grainy in the footage, is almost frowning. She's struggling to keep it together, giving only short answers to Rice's questions. Then, Rice drops another bombshell.
I need to know what the truth is.
Okay.
We have your diary. We've read your diary,
Mm-hmm.
including the last entry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's so still.
He goes silent for a full 70 seconds. Just over a minute. It may not seem like a very long time, but when you're in an interrogation and under pressure, this silence must have felt like the longest silence Alyssa ever endured. And you can see her face start to falter. Maybe her eyes are watering up, but it's hard to tell. Some argue that the first person who breaks silence in an interrogative setting loses the round. Alyssa indulges the silence, which might be more telling than if she objected to Rice's implication. Alyssa could be brainstorming. She could be terrified. It looks like there was a moment when Alyssa might break, but then she seems to reset her emotions and remain quiet, staring back at Sergeant Rice.
We both know what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
She's a teenager, though.
Oh.
What we do with kids all the time. We do with kids all the time. That's all I've done for 12 years is deal with kids. You're not going to say anything in this room that's going to catch us off guard. Okay? We need you to be honest. Just be honest. If you know something, say it. Okay?
Toby is making a serious error here by involving herself in the questioning. She is a juvenile officer, and in taking this role, she's supposed to be acting as Alyssa's advocate, not as an interrogator. She is limited to observing the interrogation and protecting Alyssa's rights. She is crossing the line here, and due to this mistake, the confession was later ruled inadmissible in court, citing deceptive tactics being used to draw a confession out of Alyssa.
Just say it if you know something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You need to tell us the truth. You need to tell us what happened. If this was an accident, that's fine, but we need the truth.
With Rice saying it's fine if it, meaning the death of Elizabeth, was an accident. This is the minimization part of the Reed technique that's been used throughout this entire interrogation. Minimization is an interrogator's attempt to decrease a suspect's resistance to confessing by downplaying the seriousness of the crime. We can tell Alyssa is teetering on the precipice of confessing, toying with the idea. Cornered by two questioners, she tightly compresses her lips as she builds the courage to confess.
We have to know the truth. That's all I'm asking for, is whatever happened. I have to know the truth. This is not going to go away. All I'm asking for is the truth.
I don't know what's in the diary. I don't know the truth.
That's what I'm asking. Tell us what happened.
The lip pull is a micro expression that signals intense displeasure, dislike, or disagreement. In sports, players will often exhibit the lip pull after a loss. They are resistantly admitting defeat. Alyssa exhibits the lip pull here. This may speak to Alyssa's mindset. Is this remorse or regret? Or is it defeat? The interrogator will now begin to reiterate the accident theory, and at this point, I think Alyssa's grandmother is losing her mind in a very quiet and composed way.
If this was an accident, that's fine. We can deal with that. But I have to know what happened. I have to know what the truth was. I have to know how this happened. And the most important thing is, we have to know where she's at. We have to give this family some closure. Just like if this was your little sister, you would want closure. This family needs closure. Okay? Let's start at the beginning. Is this something that was planned out, or was this just an accident?
It was an accident.
Okay.
Interrogators often offer a chance for suspects to admit that the crime was an accident, even if all evidence suggests otherwise. This is a method for interrogators to get a foot in the door. The suspect admits to the crime, thinking they will be perceived as being less culpable, a form of minimization. It's telling that there was a pause between the words it and was.
It was an accident.
She's quickly thinking about her options and whether she can lie her way out of this situation.
Well, this is a starting point then. That's kind of what I thought. Why don't we start with what happened? Did you get home from school at 3:30?
Okay.
You got home at 3:30?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened from there?
I live in the forest. Like I said.
This lady over here in the skirt needs to shut the fuck up and sit down.
Was it there?
Yeah. So was there in the forest?
Yes.
Was she alone?
Yeah. We decided to go hang out because it was a nice day. We were just messing.
Take your time.
We were just messing around.
Ugh.
She fell. She died. I didn't know what to do. So
Girl, see, this is the problem. They already read the journal. They already know what it says. I don't know that they found the body yet. Not 100% sure yet. Might have skipped over that part. Don't really know. But they read the journal. It said, I slit her throat. And LOL, I have to go to church now. It was amazing. And then this girl's got the nerve to sit here and cry and say she fell and it was an accident. Girl, bye. Then no. Mm-mm. I don't know how this man is sitting here being nice about it. Because I surely would not know how to compose myself.
Alyssa struggles to inhale. Her windpipe is constricting, which indicates the presence of severe stress. This biological marker of stress suggests Alyssa is legitimately affected. It could likewise be that Alyssa is effectively, intentionally activating a stress response for the sake of believability.
So I burned her body.
Alyssa goes from
Burned
sobbing
her
to
body.
attempting to pull herself together. She abruptly and flatly states the burnt Elizabeth's body. The time it took her to pull herself together is probably how long it took for her to come up with that lie. In reality, she didn't burn Elizabeth, as we'll soon find out what Alyssa actually did to her.
Who helped you? Nobody.
Rice asks another assumptive question. When interrogators assume answers, suspects with answers are more likely to share them.
We're out in the forest.
I still did it by the creek bed.
At the creek bed. Yes. How did you burn her?
And just a bunch of wood. Started a fire. And burned her body.
The only reason it seems she said she burned the body without knowing how difficult it is to actually burn a body is because burning would presumably get rid of evidence and the body of the missing girl everyone is looking for.
Why did you dig that hole? Was that for her? When did you dig the hole? You dug it ahead of time, didn't you?
I dug that hole on Wednesday.
Before you played with her.
Yes.
First, she states she dug the hole the day of the murder to continue pushing the narrative that it was all just an accident. Then she slips up without even realizing it, stating the truth. The hole was dug on Friday, 5 days prior to the murder. At this point, Alyssa can't even follow her own story. Alyssa admitting to digging the hole before she and Elizabeth hung out establishes premeditation.
It doesn't matter whether the body's burned or not. They'll go through and do an autopsy. And they will discover every injury on her body and the cause of death. And I understand you say she fell, and that's why she died. However, they will know from the autopsy if she was shot, if she was hit in the head, if her throat was cut. They will know all of that from the autopsy. So we need to know the truth,
great of you
because at
if
the
you
end
would
of the
just
autopsy, they will know
tell the
exactly
truth.
how she died. So we need to know now the full truth, full disclosure right now, so it doesn't come out later that, well, wasn't telling the full truth again.
Then he calls her bluff.
How did you kill her?
I didn't. She died.
How did she die? 9-year-old
Girl.
girls don't just die.
We were messing around. And she fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Alyssa sharply exhales as she responds.
Yeah. Oh.
We see Alyssa's emotional appeal to her grandmother. Her emotional stuntedness appears to have limits. Individuals with psychopathic and sociopathic personality traits or tendencies, while removed from feeling in a multitude of ways, may experience normal feelings of love for family and others closest to them.
Grandma?
Oh my God.
She was grandma. I'm not going to ask any questions right now until we get.
Y'all are fucking up the flow, yo.
Take your time.
Alyssa finally admits to cutting Elizabeth Olten's throat. Alyssa's grandmother cries out in utter anguish and disbelief. Her entire world was just destroyed. Her granddaughter, the one she rescued from a horrible living situation, just admitted to killing a 9-year-old girl. But why did Alyssa kill her?
I think you dug the hole ahead of time because you knew you were going to kill. I think you tried to dig the hole, like I said, and realized it was too hard to dig down that far.
She said it will never be
And I think
okay.
you got out there. You knew you were going to kill her. And then you cut her throat. Is that what
Grandma
happened?
was having a mental breakdown.
Yes.
We hear Alyssa exhale heavily, possibly a sign of relief, as she runs through her actions. She does this multiple times.
What did you use to cut her throat with?
What knife?
Pocket knife? Kitchen knife? Kitchen knife. Okay. Where's that kitchen knife now?
The sink,
The sink of your house?
I believe so.
Okay.
And you just took a knife back and put
Stab
it
her?
in the kitchen sink.
Afterward,
Jesus.
Stab her body or where? Okay. How many times did you stab her?
2, I
2.
think.
Alyssa leans on words such as I believe and I think. These phrases often function as hedges. In some instances, hedges serve to soften statements or make them seem more cautious.
So
Imagine how Alyssa would
she
sound when
stabbed
responding
her
to questions
more
without
than
these hedge
2
phrases.
times.
Her response may seem overly cold and blunt, suggesting emotional detachment and even premeditation. Given Alyssa has displayed socio- and/or psychopathic tendencies thus far, it would be reasonable to conclude that she is consciously employing a social adaptive mechanism, or a learned regularity in human social behavior to mimic the normal flow of human conversation.
Did you hit her with anything first?
No.
Or did you just cut her neck? Or what? You tell me what happened.
Stop doing that. Karen is grandma. She is weeping and yelling in the background. She is not doing well.
Yeah, cut throat. And she died. And then I just stabbed her.
Premeditation has been established because she dug a grave prior to Elizabeth's murder, and Alyssa finally tells Rice what the murder weapon was: a black-handled kitchen knife that she took from her house and hid on her
A
person.
big ass knife.
It's confirmed that Alyssa slit Elizabeth's throat and then stabbed her. Alyssa only recalls stabbing her twice, but the autopsy later revealed that Elizabeth was stabbed 8 times. When she was finished, she just put the knife in the sink and washed it as if nothing had happened.
When you got home from school, about 3:30, what happened from then? Walk me through step by step.
I got home. I went in my room. I still went out for 4 hours for 3 years. Then I walked over and was outside.
When did you dig the hole?
I done that when I was trying to find a place to hide her body.
So did you dig that after you killed her?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay. So at about 5:30,
You wouldn't have
you went
had
out.
time.
Did you go to her house to get her?
I went over there and she was outside, so I was like, yeah.
You knew you were going to do it then. Okay, so you went over there about 5:30 and got her. Was she with you?
She was part of the way. Like I said, I ditched her.
Ditched her?
Yeah.
Did you have the knife hidden on you? Or where was it at?
Yeah, I had it.
In your hand?
No.
Okay. So you went, did you walk all the way over to her house?
Yeah.
Okay. Show me what route you went.
I went back through here.
Went and got her. What did you tell her you were going to do?
We were just hanging out at first. I don't know. I didn't.
Stop sucking it back up. Blow it out.
You had the knife with you. Had you made up your decision you were going to kill her then?
No.
At what
Yes,
point
you did.
did you
You
make
dug
the
the
decision that
graves.
you were going to kill her?
When we had been at the creek.
Why?
I don't know.
Serial killers murder victims who are readily available, easily accessible, vulnerable, isolated or weak, and desirable, uniquely appealing. Elizabeth was a neighbor, easily accessible. She was a 9-year-old girl, vulnerable. One can only speculate how Elizabeth might have uniquely appealed to Alyssa. Either way, Alyssa cannot identify why she did what she did, just as she seems to struggle to identify her emotions.
2 out of 3 is
Was
not bad.
15-year-old Alyssa a premature, fledgling serial killer?
She just wanted to see what it was
Decided.
like.
Was she facing you? Was she turned around? What happened?
She was turned around.
You just came up behind her and cut her throat? And then stabbed her twice? Okay. And is it true you said then you burned her body? Okay, is that part true?
Mm-hmm.
So is her body should still be there?
I burned it and then like scattered it in the creek.
Into the creek?
Yes.
Is the creek full of water?
Yes.
Liar. You can't do
Because generally
that.
it's pretty hard to burn a body all the way. So it wasn't burned up all the way, was it?
No.
No, because it's hard to burn a body.
Right.
So you kind of pushed what was left of the body into the water. Was the water moving pretty fast?
Kind of.
Okay.
You're just making shit up now.
Clothes still, you can still see her clothes. Were they burned off on the right? Okay. And you took the knife back home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why didn't you just
And then
burn the
what
knife
did
too?
you do from there? You had the knife, and then show me what happened from there.
I just walked back and came inside.
Did you walk back this path that you showed me?
Yes.
The conversation turns back to the hole.
What about the hole, though?
It was just there.
No, it wasn't just there.
I dug it. Yeah, it was there.
When did you dig it?
Oh, after I.
Why would you dig the hole if you were going to burn the body?
To do with their body. So I dug it.
When?
It was before I came home
Before you came home from where?
from the forest.
Who helped you?
No.
Grandpa helped you, didn't he?
No.
Bryce asks her if her grandfather helped her since he was home at the time the murder took place.
You didn't have a shovel with you.
I had a knife.
You
dug a
didn't
hole
dig
with
that
a
hole
knife? Girl.
You did not dig. I was out there for 5 hours. You didn't dig that hole with a knife. Your grandpa loves you very much, doesn't he?
You're silly.
Grandpa do anything for you.
You're a silly Billy Goat.
I know you don't want to tell me. I know you want to protect him. But we got to get to the truth of this. You came back. You told him what had happened. And he wanted to help you. He wanted to try to make this
I
right.
am so
I
tired.
didn't look like about anything.
Who helped you?
No one.
We're
Nobody.
going to put them all on a polygraph.
Okay.
Who helped you?
Someone.
When did you dig the hole?
Wednesday.
When?
Badam.
After I killed her.
When after you killed her?
This is a very common tactic in interrogations. Once the suspect is open about events, they'll try to get more and more information out of them.
Oh, my legs.
The investigators will treat this crime as if it involves accomplices until other parties can be eliminated. The whole becomes the topic of discussion yet again.
You've got to tell the truth. You're not telling the truth on this part.
Why does it even matter now?
It does matter because we have got to find out the truth.
No, you already know it.
We have got to know the full truth. Tell us the truth.
I don't want to wake
Freaking
up.
nose, man.
No, you didn't. You didn't have a show.
It was the Friday one. Jeff.
You're telling the truth about how you killed her. I believe that because that matches your diary.
You've done the hard part. Just tell the truth. The reality is, we can deal with the truth. We can deal with the truth.
Toby assumes a critical role in facilitating Alyssa's confession.
I took it Friday.
Was it David? Was it?
No one helped me.
Was it your grandpa?
No one helped me. I did it by myself.
It's interesting to see how Alyssa goes from trying to lie and pretend she had nothing to do with the missing little girl to finally admitting she dug a grave and killed her. But Sergeant Rice and Toby can't believe that she committed the crime herself or dug the hole. They think her grandfather had something to do with it too. They are almost giving Alyssa away to continue her lie, but she's probably the most truthful when they try to implicate her grandfather. Probably out of love for him, because if there were ill feelings between them, there's no doubt she would attempt to throw him under the bus.
Did you do anything else to her body?
No.
Did anyone help you?
No.
Who have you told about this?
No one.
No one. Did you tell?
No.
Did you tell your grandpa?
No.
Did you tell your friend?
No.
Did you tell anyone?
No.
There's a good reason that the investigators think Alyssa didn't act alone. Even her boyfriend said that he doesn't think she could have carried out the crime by herself. Quite literally.
I think she did this alone.
She couldn't have.
I don't think she did either. I mean, she could barely lift me.
I know.
Who would be the person that would help her? The only good friend that I know of that she always came out with in the back was a girl named, but that's about it.
She's right. Toby's right. You've done the hard part on this. One thing I can assure you, Alyssa, I can assure you,
Oh my God, you're dramatic.
for the last 13 years. I do got a crummy job. The truth is going to come out. Every one of these that I work, where you're sitting here right now, going through the agonizing part of not wanting to come this last portion and tell on someone else.
Who
The
knows
truth,
what's there?
the truth is the full truth on whatever happened here is going to come out.
Truth
Okay, I didn't do it.
shall set you
And
free.
tell me the full truth of all this. Why aren't you telling everything?
I did. I switched up the whole thing because I want to make it an accident. But then it really was on Friday that I did the whole.
I know it wasn't an accident. I mean, I've already talked with you. I know you planned this. I know you had this in your mind. I know you thought about this, and I know you intended on doing this. I know that. Okay,
Premeditation.
I know this wasn't an accident, that it just spurred the moment. I know that from the whole. I know you intended on killing her,
Oh gosh.
brought her out there for that purpose. But the problem is your deception is causing us other issues here. Okay, so I'm past the point of thinking, is this an accident? Did she hit her head? Did you just change your mind at the last second for some reason decide to kill her? I know you brought her out there to kill her. Okay, why? Well, that's not the issue, but I know that happened. But we're still having a problem here with this hole and the rest of it because
Lay back down.
you've been lying to us on that.
Because if you get down, you're going to pee on my floor.
You see,
Don't
none of
you
your
do
times make any sense on you didn't dig it with a knife. We know that didn't happen.
Don't you do it. Or else you're going to do.
It was Friday with the shovel.
When on Friday?
I'm not sure exactly.
This is where we see the shift from the lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter, a crime of passion, to that of a premeditated murder. It's clear Alyssa planned her crime from beginning to end. She planned to lure Elizabeth into the woods to play and to dig a grave a few days before she killed her. There were signs leading up to the murder that either people didn't pay attention to, wrote off as someone just seeking attention, or it was entirely possible that they didn't think.
And then what happened after that?
It's law enforcement's priority to recover the body so a forensic autopsy can be performed to corroborate the suspect's statements and generate additional evidence for the prosecution. Toby begins to explain to Alyssa that the judicial system treats people who tell the truth differently than those that lie. This is when Alyssa finally drops the story about burning the body and tells them what she really did to Elizabeth Olten.
We're going to have to talk some more about this, obviously. But for right now, I need to get a larger map.
Now is the time to just tell the truth. That's all you have to do is tell the truth. There's parts of your story that don't make sense. They don't make sense. They don't make sense even to me. Because I am your advocate and I am here to protect you. I'm not going to ask them questions, but there's statements that you're making that don't make sense. It's evident that you're lying. And we treat people who can't be honest completely different than we treat people who can be honest. You can be honest. You can tell us what happened. Even if you aren't protecting people you feel obligated to protect, we at least know we can help you. Okay?
Okay.
So he's going to
9-year-old Elizabeth Olten's body. As the interviewer has noted, the two holes are interesting, but not everyone buys Alyssa's explanation. There is a theory that Alyssa may have dug two holes
For the
because she had
brothers.
originally planned to kill her two younger brothers.
Yep. We went over that. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to cut it short, y'all.
Yes.
Not really.
Childhood maltreatment and or neglect is a strong predictor of suicidal ideation, pathological aggression.
Stop it.
Kitchen knife. Like that one, the black handle.
Black handle.
It's all a bunch of
She said
repeats.
she was on the ground, not moving, you said. After that point, what did you do?
I cut her throat and then stabbed her
You cut her throat and stabbed her. Where did you stab her?
in her chest area.
In her chest area?
Yeah.
In the front or in the back?
Front.
front.
She
Okay.
says it so matter of
How many
factly.
times?
Twice, I believe.
Alyssa's story still doesn't add up. Although continually claiming she stabbed Elizabeth twice, the autopsy report revealed she was stabbed a total of 8 times in the chest.
Twice. Okay. And then what happened after that?
Your breast stinks.
And dragged her into the hole.
Dragged her into this hole over here.
And buried it.
Okay. And when did you dig that hole?
Friday.
Okay. How did you cover her up? Did you have a shovel or
No.
something here?
I just used my hands.
Used your hands? Okay. And this is the hole over here. She's in her. How deep is that hole?
It's not very deep.
Okay.
Gotta finish this.
All right.
Gotta finish
Okay. And I
this.
think we've talked about everything else back at the office. I just wanted to go over. Is there anything else? This all happened right about here.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you leave anything out here that you can think of?
I think she dropped a piece of gum somewhere.
You did?
She did.
She dropped a piece of gum? Where do you think that was at?
Just a poor baby. Just poor baby.
I'm not sure. It's probably under some leaves now. But
What
She
happened
is
to her
just so
phone?
cold.
I'm pretty sure it's in her pocket.
In her pocket?
Yes.
So do you think her phone is in her pocket in that hole?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever hear it go off?
No.
Alyssa claims she never heard Elizabeth's phone ring.
They told me that she buried it because I just couldn't see her doing that by herself. But obviously, you just told me.
Boys. She'd strangled Elizabeth with her hands and used the kitchen knife for the rest of the attack. Nearly everyone in the courtroom already knew the details of the murder since it was well publicized in the media. However, this was the first time hearing it straight from the murderer herself. Elizabeth's mother, Patty, sobbed while Alyssa retold her daughter's murder. There were several reasons that the courts probably reduced the charges. At the time, it was a gray area whether it was legal to sentence a teenager to life without parole. The United States Supreme Court was getting ready to hear another case about 2 teenage murderers, and they needed to decide if life without parole was cruel and unusual punishment for people.
Yeah, they don't do that. They don't like to sentence the teenagers to life without parole. They wouldn't be able to give them the parole. Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna have to end it now. Gotta let the puppy out. She's gonna keep whining and whining and whining. So that was that. So sorry I didn't say a whole lot in this one. Like I said, I've seen these things before, but I wanted to cover this one just because it is close to home, and I remember when this happened. I had a young kid myself, so it was very hard. It's very hard. Like, it affected a lot of people. So it was, it's very tragic. And it sucks for the family and even for the young girl. I mean, she needed a lot more than what she got, I guess. But also at the same time, like, I don't know. It's hard to say. Okay. Gotta go take the puppy out before she drives me bananas. Bananas. Okay, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right. Oh, God. All right.